They used my money to build their perfect day and then told me I wasn't welcome. I gave them everything they needed for that wedding, the money, the music, the support. I stayed up nights helping with the smallest details. And just 3 days before the big night, they sent me a message. Sorry, we had to cancel your invitation to the reception. No call. No reason. Just like that, they erased me from their celebration. But what they didn't know is that the band they're dancing to, the music they're counting on, belongs to me. I'm glad to have you here. Follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from so I can see how far my story has reached. My name is Harold Thompson. I'm 68 years old and I've lived in the same small town in Ohio my whole life. I worked as a music teacher for 35 years. I never made much money, but I lived simple, saved every penny I could, and made sure to help my family whenever they needed me. After my wife died 12 years ago, I became even closer to my sister's family. Her son, Jason, was like the son I never had. I helped raise him. I taught him how to ride a bike. I paid for his college books when he couldn't afford them. I even gave him money for his first car. So when he got engaged to a sweet young woman named Olivia, I was over the moon. He asked me to help with the wedding planning. I said yes without thinking twice. Jason and Olivia wanted a fancy wedding, something big and unforgettable. I offered to pay for the band as a gift. Not just any band, but the Rising Notes, a well-known jazz group that Jason once told me was his favorite. They weren't cheap. I paid over $8,000 to book them for the evening, and I even handled the contract myself. Jason never asked how I managed it. He just smiled and said, "Thanks, Uncle Harold. You really came through for me." I was proud. I thought I had done something good. We met almost every weekend to talk about the wedding. I helped Olivia with the seating chart. I offered suggestions for the reception playlist. I even helped paint signs for the guests. Olivia always said, "You're the best, Harold." I believed her. I thought she truly cared, but maybe I should have seen it coming. Maybe I should have noticed how the guest list kept changing. I heard talk about streamlining the event and keeping it young and trendy. I didn't think much of it. I thought family came first. Then, just 3 days before the big day, I got the text. "Hey, Uncle Harold, we've had to make some last-minute changes. Unfortunately, due to space issues, we won't be able to have you at the reception. Hope you understand. Love you." That's all it said. No phone call, no discussion, just a cold message like I was a delivery driver they forgot to tip. I sat there, reading it again and again, thinking it had to be a mistake. I called Jason. No answer. I called Olivia, straight to voicemail. I sat in my recliner the entire evening, phone in my hand, waiting for them to call me back and say, "Sorry, that was a mistake." But no one did. The next morning, I drove to my sister's house. She wasn't home. I waited an hour, still no one. I finally drove to the venue, thinking I might find someone from the planning team. I saw Olivia's mother talking to the florist. I waved. She looked right through me and walked the other way. It was like I had become invisible. That night I sat alone in my kitchen. The house was quiet. My coffee went cold on the table. I looked around at the pictures on the wall, my late wife, me and Jason fishing, family holidays. I felt like a fool, used, forgotten. I kept hearing that message over and over again in my head. Hope you understand. Understand what? That I wasn't cool enough to be seen with them. That I was too old to fit in their fancy Instagram wedding. That I was good enough to pay for the fun, but not good enough to enjoy it. I barely slept that night. The next day I looked at the contract for the band. I had signed everything. My name, my number, my money. I was the official client. They even had a clause any cancellation or schedule change had to be cleared by me. Suddenly, something inside me snapped. I had been quiet my whole life. Kind, soft, gentle. But this time, I wasn't going to sit in the shadows and let people walk all over me. I wasn't going to cry alone in my kitchen again. If they didn't want me at their reception, then they didn't deserve the music I gave them. I picked up the phone and called Marcus, the band's lead singer. He remembered me. I had spoken to him many times. I explained everything. I told him I was canceling their set. He paused for a long time. "You're serious?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "They cut me out, they don't get the gift." Marcus was kind. He said, "We'll back you up, Harold, whatever you need." We agreed on a plan. The band would show up. They would start playing. But just after the bride and groom entered and the crowd settled, Marcus would walk up to the microphone and make a short announcement. Then they'd pack up their instruments and leave. That's it. No fight. No drama, just silence. It was simple, quiet just like me. But it would speak louder than anything I could ever say. The next morning was the wedding ceremony. I still went. I wore my old blue suit. I sat in the back row. No one spoke to me. Jason didn't even look my way. Olivia smiled once, but it wasn't the same smile. It felt forced, like she was doing me a favor. After the ceremony, people started heading toward the reception hall. I wasn't invited. I stood outside for a while, watching people laugh, take selfies, hold hands. The music hadn't started yet. I checked my watch. The band should be arriving soon. I walked back to my car and drove to a small diner nearby. I ordered coffee and sat by the window. I could almost see the glow of the wedding venue from where I sat. I imagined their faces when the band stopped playing, when the truth hit them. And I smiled for the first time in days. Just then my phone buzzed, a message from Marcus. "We're in, waiting for your go." I typed back 2 words, "Do it," and leaned back in my chair. I didn't need a seat at their table, because I had the power to turn off the music. I stared out the diner window, fingers still resting on my phone after sending that final message. Do it. 2 simple words, but they carried the weight of everything I'd held inside, years of being taken for granted, passed over, forgot. The waitress came by with a gentle smile. "Refill, sir," I nodded. "Yes, please." My hand trembled a bit as I lifted the coffee cup, but my heart was steady for the first time in days. I had made my move. Now I just had to wait. Back at the venue, I imagined the lights dimming, guests chattering, drinks clinking. Jason and Olivia had probably just walked into the hall, all dressed up, grinning for their photos, not knowing the storm they were walking into. I could almost hear the opening tune, the claps, the cheers, the music that I had bought them. And then silence, just as we planned. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed again. "Marcus." I opened the message. 1 single sentence. "We walked off stage." I stared at it for a long moment, then smiled and whispered to myself, "Good." The waitress must have noticed something in my face because she leaned in and said, "Everything okay?" I nodded. "Better than ever." She left me alone after that. I liked the peace, the calm after years of noise. I didn't go back to the venue. I didn't need to. I knew what would happen. I knew that without the band, everything would crumble. The schedule would fall apart. The energy would dip. And someone, maybe Jason, maybe Olivia, would realize what had just happened. They would realize who had the power all along. Later that night, I finally turned on my phone notifications. There were 3 missed calls from Jason, 2 voicemails, a dozen texts. I didn't open any of them, not yet. I wasn't ready. Instead, I scrolled through Facebook. The wedding photos had already started appearing. Most people were still posting the ceremony pictures. The bride, the flowers, the vows, but one post caught my eye. It was from a guest I didn't know, someone younger, maybe a friend of Olivia's. The caption said, "So awkward." The band just walked off stage in the middle of a song. Reception, basically over. And beneath it, comments like, "What happened? Was it planned? OMG, I left early, this is wild." That's what you get when you cut family out. I chuckled. That last comment felt like a small hug from the universe. I stayed up late that night. I sat by the window, watching the moon move slowly across the sky, just thinking, not regretting, not doubting, just remembering all the years I had spent trying to be the good uncle, the helper, the dependable one. I thought about all the times I put others first, even when they didn't say thank you. I wasn't angry anymore, just clear about where I stood in their lives, somewhere between useful and disposable. The next morning, I listened to Jason's voicemails. His voice was shaky, not angry, confused. "Uncle Harold, I don't know what's going on. The band left. People were upset. Can you please call me?" Another message. "Hey, if this was something you did, I really wish you had talked to me first. We need to talk, okay?" And another, "I'm sorry, I should have handled things better. I didn't mean to hurt you." It was the first time he'd apologized to me in years. Still, I didn't call him back. Not yet. Instead, I called Marcus again. He answered right away. "Harold, that was something else," he said, chuckling. "The look on their faces, I've never seen a bride go from smiling to screaming so fast." I smiled too. "You did good, Marcus, thank you." He paused for a second. "You know, a lot of guys would have just yelled or made a scene. But what you did, that was cold, man, respectfully cold." I laughed. "I guess after a lifetime of being quiet, I finally said something loud." That day I didn't go anywhere. I stayed home, turned off my phone again, and played my old piano for hours. It felt good. Like I was playing for myself again, not for a wedding, not for an audience, just for me. And somewhere in the middle of a soft jazz tune, I realized I wasn't sad anymore. I was free. 2 days later, I got a knock at the door. It was Jason. He stood there, suit wrinkled, hair a mess, holding 2 cups of coffee. "Can I come in?" I looked at him for a long second, then stepped aside. We sat down at the kitchen table, same place where I had once helped him study for his exams, same place where I had waited for his call 3 nights ago. He put the coffee down and sighed. "I messed up," he said. I didn't reply, just waited. He kept talking. "It wasn't personal. Olivia wanted to cut down the list. She said some people were photo-friendly. She didn't mean it like that. She just wanted a certain vibe. I didn't push back, I should have." I nodded slowly. "So I wasn't a good fit for her photos," he winced. "No, I mean, that's not what I meant." I didn't raise my voice, didn't get angry, just looked at him and said, "You used me, took what you needed and threw me away when I didn't fit your image. That's not what family does." Jason looked down at the table. "I know I was stupid. I just wanted everything to go smoothly." I took a sip of the coffee he brought, lukewarm. "And how did that go?" He didn't answer. After a long silence, he looked up. "Can we fix this?" I leaned back in my chair and stared at the same pictures on the wall. My late wife, me and Jason fishing, family holidays, all moments where I believed in something that maybe didn't exist anymore. I looked at him. My voice was calm. "You can try, but I'm not going to chase you anymore. If you want me in your life, you'll have to earn it." He nodded slowly. "I will." We didn't say much after that. He left soon. I watched him walk down the steps, get in his car, and drive off. That night, I posted a simple message on Facebook. "Sometimes silence is the loudest sound. I hope they heard it." In the comments, people guessed. Some knew. Others just sent hearts and kind words. One comment stood out. "You deserved better. I'm glad you made them see it." I didn't reply, but I smiled. It had only been a few days since the wedding, but already things felt different, lighter. I started going for walks again, played music more. And when people saw me at the grocery store or the coffee shop, they smiled in a new way, like they knew, like they understood. For once, I felt seen. The following week passed slowly, like the air was thicker than usual. I spent my mornings watering the plants in my small backyard, then reading old music sheets by the window while the sunlight hit the same spot on the floor just like it always did. But something had shifted inside me. I wasn't bitter, not anymore. I wasn't even angry. I just felt done, not in a hopeless way, but in a clear, peaceful way. I had carried everyone's weight for too long, and finally I had set it down. Jason didn't call again after our talk in the kitchen. I think he was giving me space, or maybe he didn't know what to say. Either way, I wasn't in a rush. I didn't expect him to change overnight. People like him, people who grow used to taking kindness for granted, they don't understand loss until it burns, and I had finally taught him how that felt. A few days later, I went to the local library to return some books. The librarian, a sweet woman named Sandra who'd known me for over 30 years, smiled as I walked in. "Heard about the wedding," she said gently. I raised an eyebrow. "Really?" she chuckled. "This town's small, Harold. News travels fast. Word is the band walked out and never came back. Some people said the bride cried so hard she left her own party." I said nothing, just smiled. She leaned in a little and whispered, "People are saying you had something to do with it." I looked her right in the eyes and replied, "Well, people say a lot of things." She laughed quietly and handed me a new book. I'm glad someone finally stood up for themselves. On my walk home, I passed a bakery where Jason used to take me on Sundays when he was a teenager. We'd split a cinnamon roll and talk about his dreams, college, career, finding love. He always said, "When I get married, Uncle Harold, I want it to be like one of your jazz concerts full of soul." That memory came back suddenly, and it almost made me stop in my tracks. That boy with stars in his eyes had turned into a man who cared more about aesthetic than authenticity. What had changed him? Or maybe the better question was, had he ever really meant those words? That evening I checked my phone. Still no new messages from him, but one from Marcus popped up. It read, "Heard from a guest. Apparently the wedding video editor quit after the reception mess. Said she didn't want her name on a video with a missing soundtrack. Thought that might make you smile." I did. A big, quiet grin that reached my eyes. I replied with a thumbs up and nothing else. Later that night, while watching a quiet film on TV, I received a knock on the door. It was Jason this time. It was Olivia. She stood there in a light sweater, no makeup, hair in a loose bun. Her eyes looked tired, like she hadn't slept since the reception. I opened the door but didn't speak first. "Mr. Thompson," she began, "may I come in?" I let her in and offered her a seat in the living room. She sat carefully, like she was sitting on broken glass. She looked around the room. Her eyes paused at a photo of me and Jason from years ago. Then she sighed. "I didn't come here to argue or to blame you. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry." I folded my hands. "What exactly are you sorry for?" She hesitated. "For disrespecting you, for forgetting everything you did for us. Jason told me the band was your gift. I didn't know, I swear I didn't know." I tilted my head. "But you knew I wasn't invited." Her lips tightened. "Yes, that I knew, and I agreed to it. I thought the wedding was about starting fresh, being modern, showing our best face." Jason didn't push back. Neither did I. "I'm sorry." Her apology felt real, not perfect but honest. I nodded slowly. "Do you love him?" She looked at me quickly. "Yes, of course." I leaned forward. "Then teach him to be better, to not forget the hands that built him." She looked down, nodded. "I will." We sat in silence for a moment. Then she stood. "You don't have to forgive us. I just wanted you to know that I'm ashamed of how we treated you." She walked to the door, paused, then turned around. The wedding was beautiful until the music stopped. After that, it all fell apart. Guests left. We were embarrassed. But you know the funny thing, that was the first real moment of the night. It reminded us that nothing can be fake forever. She left without another word, and I stood there, staring at the door long after it had closed. The next day, I visited the park near the school where I used to teach. Some kids were playing soccer, and their parents stood nearby with coffee cups and laughter. I sat on the same bench I used to read on during lunch breaks. An old colleague, Greg, walked by and spotted me. Well, if it isn't the man of the hour," he joked. I chuckled. Word really does spread fast. He sat next to me. "You know, Harold, not everyone would have had the guts to do what you did. That was bold." "I didn't want to embarrass anyone," I said. "I just wanted them to know I wasn't invisible." He nodded. "Well, you're not. People saw, people talked, but more than that, people respected it." We talked for a while about old times, students, memories. Then he said something I won't forget. "You've always taught lessons, Harold. This time, the whole town learned one." I went home that evening feeling lighter, like I had finally been heard without ever needing to yell. I made dinner, played some slow piano tunes, and just before heading to bed, I checked my phone. One message. From Jason. It read, "Uncle Harold, I don't deserve another chance, but I want to try. Will you let me?" I stared at the screen for a long time. Then typed back. "Start by inviting me for coffee, just the two of us. No cameras, no filters, just real talk." He replied instantly, "Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. at Jody's diner. I wrote, "I'll be there." I put down the phone, turned off the lights, and whispered to myself, "Let's see if the boy I raised is still in there somewhere." The next morning I woke up before the sun. I didn't sleep much, but not because I was nervous. In fact, I felt calm, steady, like something important was about to happen, and I had already made peace with whatever the outcome would be. I ironed my old plaid shirt, the one my wife used to call my conversation shirt, because she believed people opened up to me more when I wore it. I don't know if that was true, but I wanted to feel like she was with me today. By 8:30 a.m., I was sitting outside Jody's diner, watching people walk in with sleepy eyes and to-go cups. The place hadn't changed much. Same red booths, same checkered floor, same bell on the door that jingled whenever someone came in. I had a lot of memories tied to that little bell. At 8:57, Jason walked in. He looked rough, not messy but worn, like life had taken a bite out of him these last few days. His hair was brushed, but there were dark circles under his eyes. He spotted me immediately and walked over without hesitation. "Uncle Harold," he said softly. I nodded, "Jason." He sat across from me, didn't even take off his coat. For a moment we just sat in silence. The waitress came by. We ordered coffee, black for me, hazelnut latte for him like always. Then he looked up. His voice was quiet. "I've been thinking a lot." I didn't interrupt, I just waited. "I grew up with everything," he said. "Even when we didn't have much, I always had you. You showed up, always, and I never thanked you the way I should have." "You thanked me plenty," I said, "when you were a boy." He shook his head. "No, that was just me being a kid, but as a man I should have known better. I should have stood up to Olivia when she started cutting people from the list. When she suggested leaving you out of the reception, I should have said no, but I didn't. I just wanted everything to be smooth, pretty, perfect." I raised my eyebrows. "And was it?" His mouth twisted. "Not even close." I took a sip of my coffee. "You hurt me, Jason, more than you probably understand." "I know," he said quickly. "I see that now. I felt so ashamed after what happened. And when the band walked out, it was like the whole illusion shattered. Guests were confused. Olivia was crying. Her parents were yelling. It all just collapsed." I looked him in the eyes. "That was never about ruining your wedding. That was about showing you I still matter, that I'm not some decoration you pull out when it's convenient." He nodded. "I know, I didn't see it then, but I do now." He leaned forward. "I want to make it right." "How?" He paused. "By being better, by rebuilding what I broke, slowly, if you'll let me." I didn't answer right away. I just looked out the window at the morning sun spreading across the pavement. "You know what I want, Jason." He waited. "I want honesty, I want respect. I want to know that when I show up for you, you see me, you hear me. I don't need gifts or speeches. I need consistency, like I gave you your whole life." He nodded, eyes glistening. "You can start," I said, "by inviting me to dinner. Not for show, not for apology, just dinner." "I'd like that," he whispered. We talked for an hour after that. About his job, about Olivia, about his fears, failing at marriage, failing at being a man. It was the first real talk we'd had in years, and it reminded me why I loved him in the first place. Underneath all that pride and polish was still the boy who once cried when he cracked his tooth on a popcorn kernel and asked me if teeth grow back. I left the diner with no promises made, just a small thread tied back between us. It was enough for now. The next few weeks were quiet, peaceful. I went about my days like usual. I started teaching free music lessons to kids at the community center. It gave me purpose again. Watching their little fingers learn the piano or violin was like planting seeds I knew I wouldn't see bloom, but I planted them anyway. One Thursday evening I got a knock on my door. When I opened it, Olivia stood there again. But this time she wasn't alone. Behind her were her parents, dressed in formal clothes, holding a small box wrapped in silver paper. "Mr. Thompson," her mother began, "we owe you a deep apology." I didn't speak. I just stepped aside and let them in. They sat nervously in my living room, looking more uncomfortable than Olivia had looked the first time. "We misjudged you," her father said finally. We thought image mattered more than loyalty. We were wrong." Her mother opened the box and handed it to me. Inside was a photo, a real printed one, not digital. It was me and Jason from years ago. I was holding his hand at a school recital. He looked terrified. I looked proud. "We found this in one of Olivia's old albums," her mother said softly. "She told us what you meant to Jason. We're sorry for how we treated you." I nodded slowly. "Thank you." "I hope," her father added, "you'll let us invite you properly for dinner, as family." For a moment, I felt my chest tighten. I wasn't used to being acknowledged. But I finally said, "I'll come, on one condition." They looked at me. "I get to choose the music." They all laughed. Dinner happened the next weekend. A small gathering. No photographers, no fancy decor, just food, laughter, stories, and jazz playing from an old speaker. Jason sat next to me the entire time, asking about my music students. Olivia brought out dessert she baked herself, peach cobbler, my favorite. Her father raised a toast halfway through and said, "To Harold, the man who reminded us what matters most." Everyone clapped. And for the first time in a long time, I felt full. Not from food, but from being seen. From mattering. The wedding may have excluded me, but I had made sure they'd never forget me. The weeks that followed were quiet, almost soft around the edges. I woke up each day with a lighter chest, as if I had finally dropped a bag I didn't even realize I'd been carrying for decades. The mornings felt warmer, the coffee tasted better, and even the birds on the fence outside my kitchen window seemed to sing louder than before. Maybe they didn't. Maybe it was just me. But I was listening now, really listening. Not just to music, but to life. Jason started calling regularly, not to ask for help, not to apologize, just to talk about small things, his job, the house, his awkward attempts at cooking. He even asked me for my lasagna recipe, said Olivia was tired of frozen dinners and missed real food. It was strange at first, like learning to speak again with someone you thought had forgotten your language. But with every conversation, something repaired itself between us, brick by brick. One Sunday afternoon, he showed up unannounced, holding a beat-up old guitar case. "Found this in your attic last time I came by," he said. "Thought maybe we could fix it up together." I took it from his hands and opened it. My old Gibson, cracked in two places, dusty, strings loose. I hadn't touched it since my wife passed. It felt like a memory, wrapped in wood and silence. "I'd like that," I told him. And so we started meeting every weekend. Not for anything big, just to restore the guitar. A few hours here and there. Sometimes Olivia joined, sometimes not. We didn't talk about the wedding, not anymore. It was behind us. But its shadow still hung there, gently reminding us how close we came to losing each other. One Saturday, while sanding the neck of the guitar, Jason asked me something unexpected. "Uncle Harold, do you think I turned into someone I wasn't supposed to be?" I paused, wiped the dust from my hands. "No," I said. "I think you forgot who raised you, but forgetting isn't the same as becoming someone else." He nodded, eyes focused on the guitar. "You think it's too late to go back?" I chuckled. "Son, if a broken guitar can sing again, so can a man." We didn't say much after that, just kept sanding. That same week, I got a call from Marcus again. "Harold," he said, "you're not going to believe this. You remember that wedding? Turns out someone in the audience recorded the whole band walkout. It's all over social media now. Trending, even." I raised my eyebrows. "Seriously?" "Oh yeah, they called it the silent drop. People think it's some kind of protest performance." I laughed out loud. "Well, I suppose it was." He continued, "I didn't tell them the truth, but a local magazine wants to interview us about it. They think it was some kind of artistic statement on being silenced by society. That made me laugh even harder. Let them believe what they want, Marcus. He said, hey, they even asked if you'd like to talk. They want to know what inspired us to do it. For a moment I was tempted to tell the story, to finally say it out loud. But I said, no, I'm good. Some things are better left between those who lived them. He agreed. Fair enough. But for what it's worth, that day made us famous. We've got bookings for months now, and every time we start a show, we dedicate one song to a man named Harold. That made my throat tighten. You didn't have to do that, I said quietly. He replied, we wanted to. Later that night, I sat on my porch and watched the sky turn from gold to deep purple. I thought about how one quiet act of resistance had caused ripples I never expected, not out of spite, but out of need, a need to stand up for myself, to be heard. And somehow, in standing up, I had sat down in people's hearts again. The next morning, Olivia invited me over for lunch, just me, her, and Jason. I almost said no, not because I was angry, but because I feared we might pretend nothing ever happened. But I went. When I arrived, I noticed something immediately. There was a photo frame in the entryway I hadn't seen before. It was the picture from that silver box, me and Jason at his school recital. It wasn't buried on a shelf. It was right there, front and center. She saw me looking. We moved it here last week, Olivia said. It belongs where people can see it. I nodded. Lunch was nice, warm, nothing fancy, just roasted chicken and mashed potatoes. We ate in the sunroom with the windows open, breeze flowing through the curtains. After we cleared the dishes, Jason asked if I could show him the chords to a song he remembered from his childhood. Autumn Leaves, he said. You used to play it on the porch at sunset. I pulled out the fixed Gibson and started playing slowly. His fingers followed mine. Clumsy at first, but full of effort. Olivia sat on the couch, eyes closed, just listening. When we finished, Jason turned to me. Uncle Harold, would you come to my birthday next month? We're keeping it small, just close friends, real ones. I smiled. I'll be there, as long as I don't have to bring a band. He laughed, and this time it wasn't forced. That night, I realized something important. Revenge feels good for a moment. But being remembered, that lasts. I didn't expect what came next. A week after that quiet lunch, I got a letter, not a text, not an email, a proper handwritten letter with my name on the front in familiar handwriting. I hadn't seen that name in a long time. Colin Davis, my younger brother, the one who hadn't spoken to me in 14 years after we argued over our parents' house. I had given up on ever hearing from him again. And yet there it was, a letter. It began simply, Dear Harold, I heard about what happened at the wedding. I wasn't there, but the story reached me. People are talking, and I knew it could only be you. I guess you're still making statements without raising your voice. I miss you, brother. If you're willing, I'd like to talk. I sat with that letter in my lap for hours. Colin had always been stubborn, just like me. We had both said things we couldn't unsay. We let pride hold us apart like two statues staring across a canyon. But now, he had reached out. And I didn't feel bitter. I felt relieved. Maybe I was finally learning to let go, not just of the past, but of all the weight I'd carried because of it. I called him that evening. When he picked up, his voice was soft, older. Harold, he said, like he wasn't sure if I'd really call. It's me, I said. Let's talk. And we did for 2 hours straight. We talked about our childhood, about our parents, about the dumb things that broke us apart. I told him about Jason and the wedding, and he laughed like only a brother could. That's exactly the kind of quiet chaos you'd create, he said. Classic Harold. I didn't realize until that night how much I missed being known. The days after that were filled with reconnections. It was like pulling old photos from a dusty box and finding the colors still bright. People I hadn't spoken to in years began showing up, not physically always, but through messages, letters, small surprises. My neighbor, Edith, who hadn't waved at me in 3 years, brought over a pie. "Heard about your stunt at the wedding," she said, placing it in my hands. "Took guts, proud of you." Even the mailman asked me, "Are you the band guy?" I couldn't believe how far the ripples had gone. But amid all that warmth, something kept tugging at me. One morning, I opened my email and found a message from a local community college. It was from the director of their music department. She had seen the viral video of the reception band silently walking off and discovered that I was behind it. "We'd love for you to come speak to our students," she wrote, "about quiet protest, about dignity, about your journey." At first, I hesitated. I wasn't a speaker. I was an old man who once ran a hardware store and played guitar for barbecues. What could I possibly teach college kids? But then I remembered something Jason said after I played Autumn Leaves for him. "You make music feel like a message." So I said yes. The day of the talk, I wore my best coat, polished my shoes, and brought my old Gibson, now repaired, strings tuned perfectly. The classroom was full of young faces, bright and curious. I stood before them and told my story, about family, about betrayal, about silence and strength. At one point, I said, they canceled my invitation because they thought I didn't matter anymore. But they forgot I gave them the gift they were going to celebrate with, so I took it back. Not to ruin their day, but to remind them of mine. The room went quiet, and then applause. Afterward, one student came up and said, "You made me call my dad for the first time in 2 years." That hit me harder than any song ever had. On the drive home, I thought about the man I had become. I was Harold, the ignored uncle anymore. I was Harold, the reminder, the lesson, the music under the noise. But I wasn't done yet. That night I got a call from Olivia. "Harold, there's something we wanted to ask you. Jason and I were renewing our vows in the spring, just a small thing, but we wanted to be real this time, honest, and we were wondering, would you play something for us at the ceremony?" I paused, heart heavy and full at once. "You want me to bring the band?" I joked. "No," she said softly, "just you." It wasn't an apology. It wasn't making up for what they'd done, but it was something more. It was respect. It was inclusion. It was her saying, "You matter now, we see you." I told her yes. And then I sat on my porch, under the stars, with my guitar in hand and the wind whispering through the trees. For the first time in years, I didn't feel forgotten. I felt like a man who had taken back his place, not with yelling, not with anger, but with silence, timing, and heart. The old me would have never believed it. But the new me, he was just getting started. The morning of Jason and Olivia's vow renewal arrived with soft light pouring through my curtains and the sound of robins chirping on the porch. I sat at the edge of my bed for a long time, holding the shirt I'd saved for special occasions. It was the same blue one I wore at my wife's funeral. That day, it soaked in my tears. Today, I hoped it would hold something better. I hadn't spoken to Jason since Olivia called weeks ago. Not directly, at least. He hadn't apologized. He hadn't explained. But the silence between us didn't feel like war anymore. It felt like waiting. A space left open for something new to grow. I didn't expect a miracle, just honesty. And if nothing else, I'd give that much. When I arrived at the venue, it was nothing like the first wedding. No big chandeliers, no ice sculptures, no waiters in gloves. Just a small backyard with folding chairs, white string lights, and a few friends gathered around with warm smiles. It felt real. It felt like family. I carried my old guitar, the one they never expected to see again, and found a spot near the front. Olivia came out first, holding a bouquet of wildflowers. Her eyes found mine instantly, and she gave me a smile that didn't need words. Then Jason walked beside her. He looked older, tired maybe. But when he saw me, his eyes didn't look away. They stayed locked on mine, and for the first time in years, I saw something in him I hadn't seen since he was a little boy: humility. The ceremony was short. The pastor said a few words, and then Olivia turned to Jason, holding his hands. I wanted this moment to be about truth, she said. We started wrong, we made mistakes, but today we promise again, not just to each other, but to those we hurt along the way. Jason has something to say. He turned toward me. Everyone turned to look. Dad, he began. Just that word stopped my heart for a second. It had been so long since he used it without distance. I should have called, I should have explained. What we did that day, we thought we were keeping the peace, but really we were just hiding from the truth. And we hurt you deeply. You didn't deserve that. You gave more than anyone, and I repaid you by locking you out. I can't undo that, but I can say I'm sorry. And I can ask you now from the bottom of my heart, will you forgive me? There was silence. Every face turned to me, and I stood up slowly, guitar in hand, and said only this, play your vows, then I'll answer you. The pastor nodded and they turned back to one another. They spoke soft promises about kindness, honesty, and never repeating the past, and when they finished, they looked to me again. I stepped forward. I didn't say anything. I just adjusted the strap of my guitar and began to play. It was the same song they tried to walk down the aisle to during their first wedding, the one that stopped midway when the band walked off. Only this time I finished it, every note, every chord, and I played it like I was rewriting the past, smoothing the broken edges with sound. When I finished, I looked up. Jason had tears on his cheeks. Olivia was holding his hand tightly. I walked over, set my guitar aside, and put my hand on my son's shoulder. I forgive you, I said, but don't ever forget what silence taught you. He nodded, never again. After the ceremony, people came up to me, not because of the music, but because of the message. You taught us all something today, one woman said. Not just about family, but about standing your ground the quiet way. Even the pastor said, that was the most powerful sermon I've ever heard, and you never even opened your Bible. I laughed, truly laughed, and for once I didn't feel like an outsider looking in. I felt like the heart of it all. Later that evening, Jason and I sat alone by the fire pit in the backyard. Everyone else had gone inside. He handed me a mug of coffee and looked into the flames. Can I ask you something? He said. Of course. When you pulled the band out, did you ever worry that it would make things worse? That we'd hate you? I sipped my coffee and smiled. No, because I wasn't trying to make you love me again. I was trying to remind you who I was. He nodded, staring at the fire. Well, you reminded me. You reminded all of us. The next few weeks brought peace. Jason started calling more, even stopping by the house with Olivia on Sundays. They'd help clean the porch, bring over lunch, or just sit with me, not out of guilt, out of care. Colin came down for a visit and we all shared stories. The house, once filled with echoes of silence, now felt alive again, not loud, just steady. And every time someone asked me why I did what I did, why I walked away from the reception I helped build, I'd tell them the truth. They canceled my invitation to the reception, but they forgot I paid for the entire band, so I reminded them, not with shouting, not with revenge, but with silence and strings, and sometimes that's all it takes to be heard. I'm glad to have you here. Thank you for following my story until the end. Tell me in the comments below, where are you watching from? Let's see how far this quiet voice can travel. Because even now I've learned. You don't have to yell to make noise. You just have to play the right note at the right time. The end.